and I apologize. Thank you all for being here. Happy Friday. Hope you all do well with the cold and the snow. I welcome the moisture, but it's going to be cold. I just want to call this meeting to order. I'm Chair Larimer County Commissioner Joey Shadwick-Nally. Let's do roll call. And Courtney, you'll convey my messages, and I'm hoping I can get in and out of this session. If not, then I will talk to you all next week. And I'm planning to take some of this work that Courtney's going to share, and I will talk to you all soon, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hope your session goes well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and take roll, and yeah, Commissioner Shadwick-McNally has another engagement. We thought we could still roll through the agenda and make some progress if possible on some of our legislative recommendations. So I'll go through the roll. It looks like we have a lot of people here today, which is great. Katie McGrath Novak.
Good morning.
Good morning, Katie. Pat Dorsey.
Good morning.
Good morning, Pat. Christina Bury.
Morning.
Morning, Christina. We already heard from the Commissioner, Shadwick-McNally. Mark Morgan.
Present.
Morning, Mark. Julie Stencil.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie. Commissioner Veronica Medina.
Good morning.
Morning, Commissioner. And Allison Lurch.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Wow, a full house again. I think this happened last week, and it's nice when people are able to join. So I think the first thing on the agenda we wanted to get into, we wanted to look at House Bill 25-1078, and this is a bill. It has a couple concepts in it, but one of the concepts, the forestry workforce and education piece, came out of this committee through the council and was recommended to the Wildfire Matters Review Committee. It looks like it has been combined with some other concepts, and Jody wanted to make sure we had a conversation about if the committee supports the bill as it is, because if they do, we would recommend that the council support the bill so that the council could testify in support of this bill during the legislative session. So I could read a little bit from the website. James, I don't know if you're if you feel familiar with this bill, if you could maybe explain to people, especially the other half. You know, I think this committee is pretty familiar with the part that has to do with 4-H and the education and all the great collaboration, but especially the other half.
Did you want me to go, or were you going to read a little bit first?
Okay, I can read a little bit from the website, and then I can also share, I think, what Allison, the link has some information, but essentially the second half, I think, authorizes the Department of Public Safety to award grants for basic firefighting certifications and for instructor training, and to develop a program to train instructors to teach firefighting certificate programs, and authorizes the Department of Public Safety to develop an outreach program to promote fire service careers. So that's like the 2-sentence version. If you go on the website, you know, there's 3 extra bullet points. There's a little bit more information there. I could also drop it in the chat. I'm hesitant to read too much from the website, but I can. Maybe I will. Okay. So Section 2 authorizes the division to use money in the local firefighter safety and disease prevention fund to 1, provide need-based grants to fire service governing bodies and volunteer fire departments for the cost of certain firefighter certification courses, course materials, textbooks, instructors, and written testing to provide Fire Instructor 1 or equivalent certifications for instructors who want to participate in and train the trainer program. 2, subject to appropriations by the General Assembly, create a train the trainer program to ensure that all instructors providing grant funded certification classes described in the bill teach a consistent curriculum. And 3, subject to appropriations by the General Assembly, create a statewide outreach program to promote fire service careers, including marketing materials targeted to youth, an online portal to access career pathways and resources, and marketing materials that include social media. So that's everything from the website. James, do you have any other information or thoughts about this?
I think the website covers it in a very good way. I think it's important for this group to understand. I think the reason this got lumped together was in Wildfire Review Committee. only 5 bills can move out of that committee. And there were 2 really good concepts that the committee liked. And so that's how this bill got morphed into one. As they were going through, there was talk of what's called severing the bill. So it's literally taking that bill once it's introduced and taking away the workforce and education piece that you guys have recommended, and then creating a different bill, which is entirely that firefighter piece. But for the most part, I think Courtney did a really good job of underlying what it actually does. So for that firefighter training, just basically under current law, DFPC awards grants to fire departments to replace damaged equipment and to provide training to increase safety. What this new bill is trying to do is allows grants to be awarded for fire certification courses and materials, requires DFPC to do that train the trainer program that she was talking about. And basically it requires DFPC to develop an outreach campaign to really get new firefighters interested in joining the workforce there. But other than that, I think, did I accidentally close? Nope, I didn't. Other than that, I think Courtney did a really good job of what those 2 different pieces are, section 1 and then section 2 and 3.
Thank you, James.
I'm just saying, I'm gonna let Courtney keep running. I can have 5 more minutes. They said I could be here and I didn't want to miss. So I'm just listening. Thanks.
Thanks, Judy. Yeah, so does the committee have any thoughts? Hopefully this can be a quick discussion, but I think we want to have a thoughtful discussion. If this is something that the committee supports, if this is something you think the council should support, because it is nice that section 1 is a recommendation that came out of the council in the last annual report. So any thoughts? Yeah, Julie, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess my question is, I hear you, James, that there's a chance, right, that they might sever the bills. And I guess I'm curious if you have a sense, if they did that, does that put one piece versus the other piece more at risk of going forward? Because I think as a package, at least my take on what I'm seeing here is it's a good package that stresses education and development up on 2 very important pieces. I'm just curious as to whether you know anything about what would the over under and what could happen if they sever.
I think that is a very good question, and you've really hit the nail on the head. I think in severing the bill, it does 2 things. It puts them in competition with one another based on the limited funds that are going to be available for the General Assembly to allocate this year. So section 1, which deals with the forestry specific piece, right now has a fiscal of about $700,000. The second piece has an additional fiscal for about $500,000. And so you'll see chunks of that money will disappear from the bill, and then it'll be on its own. And so it will be kind of a fight. But yes, so you're spot on in saying that it could be beneficial to just have the Forest Health Council recommendation as a bill, but then it does put that one in competition with another good bill that I know this council would likely support, but is going to be in competition.
Okay.
James, is there a way to keep them from severing the bill?
Yeah.
I mean, is that a recommendation this could put forward? Like, it's a whole package.
I think that's another good question, Pat. It's entirely up to the discretion of the sponsors. That being said, the sponsors are being they're engaging DFPC, DNR, CSFS, and CSU in some of these negotiations because they understand how hard it is. If that's something that this committee would like to stress to the sponsors to keep them from being severed, I think it's something appropriately that can come from this committee. But at the end of the day, it is going to be up to the sponsors to decide what is their best path forward, because at the end of the day, the sponsors would like to take home successes and wins to their constituents. And if it's one bill over the other versus 2 bills versus none bill, they're going to try and find the path that is most viable for them.
Yeah, I totally understand. And this is not a good budget year to be proposing a lot of legislation either. So thank you for that, James. I appreciate my reality check.
Mark Morgan, what would you like to say?
I hear the term all the time in this group and leveraging this and leveraging that and cooperation. And to me, all of these pieces of this bill all fit together to the same purpose. So generally, when you're trying to get a bill passed, if there's something in it for everybody, then everybody can support it. If we start splitting pieces off of it, then everybody kind of retrenches and goes for their own thing. So I would like to see us support the bill in total. And my other quick question would be, we had a presentation and everything on the 4-H portion of this. What is the 4-H portion of this in funding? My original thing about that 4-H presentation, it was obviously excessively expensive, and that we needed to look at something more viable. Is there a price tag or delineation of these resources in this bill? Or I guess I'd like to see the 4-H part of it, whatever it's going to be fleshed out, or what course we'd like to take. That's all.
Good question. The bill is kind of the way that it's introduced. There is a small way to understand how much is going to be dedicated to CSU as a whole system to implement it, and that's including FTE. That's including the resources to run it. But I'm looking specifically at a fiscal note, and basically what it's coming down to is much of that money is going to be into the personal services for the actual staff to do it. So getting the people throughout the extension network, which is statewide, which is going to be bulk of that. Everything else is going to be in the tens of thousands for travel, certifications, and operations. And since it's CSU, there's indirect costs, but a bulk of that is going to go to implementation of the 4-H program.
I work a lot with 4-H on other projects, and somehow the price tag for this seems to be expensive for what's going to get out the bottom. I guess that's my comment. We seem to get a whole lot of things done without this kind of financial commitment, and I don't want the size of the financial commitment to kill the intent of what we're trying to do. I don't have an answer there. I'm not advocating for a position. I'm telling you my concerns. Okay.
Mr. Morgan, would those concerns, is that like a red flag? Would that prevent you from supporting this bill?
Oh, no.
Okay. Does anyone have any concerns around supporting this bill? Okay. I wonder if we could potentially make two motions. One is support the bill as is, and then the second is if the bill splits, we still want to support the forestry workforce component. That way, kind of all the bases are covered given what might happen. Is there any more discussion? I don't want to cut the discussion short. Okay. Would someone perhaps make such a motion?
Courtney, can I ask a question first? Are you asking for two separate motions, or one that focuses on as is, and then one in the alternative if it doesn't go forward as is? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not as familiar with motion making, but I think we can make one motion to support the bill as written, and if split, to continue to support the forestry workforce and education aspects or components.
So then if it splits, the committee is not supporting the firefighter development piece. We're sort of picking a horse, if you will. Got it.
Well, I mean, this committee could also vote to support the firefighter workforce component if it splits, to have two what would they be called? Yeah, support positions. And I know this also has to run up through the council. You know, it doesn't end at the committee. This is kind of like the first step. But I think if the committee also wants to support that part of this bill as written, we can absolutely do that. Mark?
When would we know when the bill splits? Is there time for us to act after that point? Could we say then, see what they do, put what they put in the bills and say, we're going to support one or the other? And I think just in the spirit of cooperation and everything, at least on the surface, I would hate to go on the record as not supporting the firefighter training and stuff as well. I think it would be a real weakness for this group to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like supporting it as it is. I'm concerned about what the positioning would be if they sever. I think the message that I'm hoping to send is keep it together. As it's put together, it makes sense. I think, and maybe this is where you smarter legislative people than me, tell me this. I hear Mr. Morgan's concerns about the financial pieces, right? I suspect that is something that can get negotiated and parsed out, keeping the bill together. They may reduce amounts in the bill if others share, for example, Mr. Morgan's concern that the 4-H piece is a little high. They can address it that way as opposed to splitting it up and maybe somebody gets nothing. Is kind of, I guess that's how that's my 2 cents worth.
That makes sense to me. Samantha, what do you think?
Yeah, Julie, I appreciate those thoughts. And I similarly don't know the ledge process as well, but are there scenarios where, especially in this tight budget situation that we're in, where a bill could be introduced with almost like an increasing funding scenario depending on availability over fiscal years? And is that good or bad, or is that too complicated? I'm curious.
So lots of questions. Backing up to Mr. Morgan's, there would have to be some type of advance notice if these bills were to split. And so in watching committees, which is something that I am supposed to do at the Colorado State Forest Service, I'll be watching this one closely. The concern that I have is if they split, we have quarterly meetings, one in February, and I don't know when the next one will be, but legislative session only runs January through May. So there is a possibility, I've seen this group do it before, but going through an email to get that approval needed. So there is a possibility. I think in Julie's and Samantha's questions, I think the funding piece is going to be the critical thing. I think there are ways to introduce the bill and to make cuts. And I think those conversations are currently happening, like how much of the 4-H program is necessary, how much of the firefighting program is necessary to keep them both and to fund them both. As far as mechanisms to fund the bill in out years, there's no easy way to say it, but there is it's not necessarily a rule, it's not statute, and I don't believe it's constitutional, but there is this history and tradition of not tying future legislatures to legislation in the past. So there's what's called out years, and that funding is taken into account to go out, but it's not necessarily to say we introduce the bill 2025, we give this amount 2025 and then increase until it's full. It's more so when the bill's introduced, it has that out year funding already allocated. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, James. Appreciate that.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes. The funding portion of this for 4-H, just to be direct about it, I think what I would like to propose or suggest is a reallocation of a fair amount of existing resources and maybe a change in priorities in CSU's 4-H administrative program. I just don't feel that we can ask for a lot of money, but I think we have to take a hard look at some of the priorities, and we have to make the case that this is more important. And I guess that's my approach to it, because I don't think the money's going to be there. I think the cause is just, and we need to find a way to advance it. And I guess that's as plain as I can put it.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. And I think I have a question for James about that. What is our ability right now? I understand we can vote to support or not support a bill. Is there still, what I'm hearing Mr. Morgan say is he'd like to still advocate for perhaps some adjustments, for changing priorities within the 4-H program. Is there still room to advocate for those types of adjustments? Or are we at the place where changes are in the hands of the sponsors and we're just voting to support or not support? What are our options?
I think that's a good question too. Our hands aren't completely tied at this point, but I think everything is going to fall directly to the sponsors. And honestly, it's going to fall squarely, I think, into the hands of the departments that are most affected. I think there's ongoing conversation with CSU and with DFPC about this funding piece. If this council if there's enough input from this council to start to maybe claw back some of that things, Allison is here to represent Director Dan Gibbs. Christina Burry is here representing the State Forest Service, and we have ties to the CSU system. If there's enough advocacy and our friend Daphne and the governor give us some go ahead to like maybe chase some of these things, it is possible. But as with everything, money is going to really tie everything up. And putting my CSU hat on, they're looking at really tight budget cuts for the Department of Higher Ed already. And so reallocating existing resources is going to be something that I think they'll look at. But like their primary responsibility is going to be education and the research parts of it. So I don't know if there's going to be an opportunity for that reallocation. That's not for me to say. That's just my 2 cents. But it is, our hands aren't tied as a Forest Health Council. If this group wants to act, we have people like Allison, like me, and like Christina and Matt and Director Gibbs that can kind of push for some of this.
Thanks, James. That's really helpful to understand what our options are. So I'm hearing a few things. I think it would be beneficial to take a vote to support, even if it's just the bill as written. If we don't want to get into the splitting, I think that would be beneficial today. Mr. Morgan, if you would like to see changes made, I think that's totally, if you want to maybe propose something to the committee to talk about, the committee, this committee can also vote to ask the council to pursue these avenues to continue to refine the bill. So I think that sounds like that's also in our realm of possibilities.
We have these bills all get worked over, changed over. There's always a lot of horse trading going on, and I feel that it's going to be beyond our ability to affect it very much. So I think I would be happy to vote for the bill as is, a vote to approve it and champion it. And I think it would be premature at this time to suggest changes till we see the legislators are there for a purpose, and they're going to do what they're going to do. And I don't want to sound like the Broncos staff, but if it doesn't work out, we'll get them next year. But, I think that's the case here. And so let's be supportive as we can, and then and see what they come up with. I would hate to be in the business of micromanaging this bill for the sponsors or for the agencies. I think it would be counterproductive to this group.
Great. I really appreciate that. And Pat, I'm going to pass it to you. I'm going to say one more thing. I think this committee does have a charter, and once the council does vote to support the bill, this committee does have some discretion in continuing to advocate for the bill. So I don't think our hands are going to be tied. We can vote to support the bill, which is what I'm hearing you say, Mr. Morgan, and then there's still time. The session isn't over. Pat, what do you think?
Yeah, first off, I thought I saw somebody else's hand up. If that's not the case, I'll go ahead. I agree with Mr. Morgan is what I was going to say. I think we could support the bill out of the gate and then get the feel for what the legislative landscape looks like, how the bill gets altered. I'm sure we'll have another bite at the apple down the road. And I appreciate James and Allison and you, Courtney, keeping us really informed about those processes. So thank you.
Great. Well, this has been, I think, a informative discussion, important discussion. So I'm glad we've dove in here. Do people feel comfortable making a motion to support the bill?
Yeah, I would make a motion to support the bill as is.
I would second it.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any more discussion? Okay, any opposed? Wonderful. So this will go on the agenda for the February 6th Forest Health Council meeting. I'm excited. It's wonderful to see something that started in this committee, end up at through the Wildfire Matters Committee and then turning into legislation. So I'm happy that it's come back around for us. So I want to look at our agenda. So we have about 30 minutes left, and I think what we wanted to do was return to that list of concepts, legislative concepts. Allison and I had spent some time looking through the notes, the incredible discussion that this group had, and we sort of separated things into two groups. One that seems like potentially legislative recommendation, and other things that seemed like really important committee actions, but might not be legislation, like capital days, education for legislators, which are things I think people are really excited about, but doesn't necessarily need to be presented as a bill recommendation. So I'm going to share this document with you all. I can also share my screen. And I think the very first thing we wanted to do was make sure that you guys felt comfortable with the way that we had separated this list. So I'll share my screen. And if anyone is like, well, you guys did that kind of strange, just let us know. So here is mostly in this first list, these are some of the things we've been talking about the last few weeks. And on the second list, committee actions are things that seem a little bit more like the committee can tackle, but not through the legislative process. So actually, I'll read the committee actions, which are things we've sort of pulled down. One is capital days, education for legislators. Jody was talking about we could do breakfast in the hallways, and we could share with them some of these important topics that we've been learning about, like reducing the cost of forestry projects, a showcase of the incredible work that state programs are doing to leverage each other, like the water utilities, the state forest service programs, DNR programs. We could also talk about the importance of G&A. That's something we're hearing again and again, and we want policymakers to continue to support that. And then here, also testify in support of workforce bill or House Bill 25-1078, which is what we've just sort of voted to do. Yeah, Julie, what do you think?
Yeah, sorry, question. As I think about this list, particularly item number 1, I was curious about whether those actions by this group, does that in any way, would that cross a line or trigger lobbyist activities by us if we were to do that? We've talked about things like that in the past. I'm never really sure where that line is. So I just want to make sure I understood that.
That's a wonderful question, and it's not something I'm super familiar with, but I can take an action item for this meeting to talk to our Attorney General.
Yeah, would you? I guess I just, as we think about these things, I just want to be sure. Some folks may already be, registered and fall into that space, and it's not an issue. And I just I was just curious about that, if that presents any challenges.
As a nonprofit organization, I know that as long as it's education, it's not advocacy, it's, it's okay, but it's still wise for the state, especially with all the state departments and stuff, to double check and see what their ability to participate as a state forest service or CWCB, whatever.
And if we, and if it's something, I mean, Pat, to your point, if it's something that we can't do ourselves, could we partner with a nonprofit to have them go to, get the message out in a way that stays within the guardrails of how that's supposed to occur?
It's a great question, Julie. And I think I've been exploring some of these questions as far as DNR's capability or ability to participate in something like this as well. And so and what I've gotten so far, at least for us, is, if it is truly education and outreach, we can be at the table,
Okay.
Educating that way, but we will dig in more and make sure that if this does move forward, we're all there and allowed to be doing these types of activities.
Great.
Mr. Morgan?
I've always felt in the past, when I was involved in things like this, that the purpose of groups like these is to advocate for the positions of the agencies with the legislature. I mean, it's difficult for the agencies to go forth and advocate themselves for more money, more funding. They have a course there, but supporting those uses by the agencies that are effective, I always considered the very purpose of this group. So, if they're going down the right road and they're doing the right thing, get in there and help them and advocate for them, and with the legislative bodies. I think, in my mind, that's not only questionable, I think it's the purpose of it.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think it's good to hear both like the passion for doing it and the let's just double check and make sure we're doing it in the correct way. So I think I'm hearing a lot of support for this, and we'll just come back at the next meeting with some more information about how to make sure we're doing it right. Because this is another important way to engage in legislation, which is what this committee is up to. Commissioner Medina, what do you think?
So I agree that I think it is important, and I think that's why we're here to support this. And I remembered from last time we discussed that it may not be really in the budget to be able to provide those breakfast items for that. And so I've talked to the timber industry in my area, and there's a lot of people that will say, what do you need? We can order the breakfast burritos or whatever it is you need. So there's a lot of buy-in, and especially in our community, we're rural, we don't really get up there to be able to do these type of things. So there are businesses that are eager to help.
That's really wonderful to hear. And I think that was an idea that had been floating around, and it's wonderful to hear that already there's people in your county, Commissioner, who are excited about the idea of collaborating in that way.
That's kind of a statewide thing. There's lots of people. That's not
Just not just Archuleta County, yeah.
no.
What about the other ways that we've sort of separated this list? I know we would like to dive into the legislative recommendations today. Do you all feel comfortable sort of focusing on zooming in on items 1 through 4, and then the committee actions 1 through 2? Those are things that we can keep working on as a committee, but they're not as important for this particular legislative recommendation development timeline that we're on. Okay. I think okay, great. So let's zoom in. So we've reviewed the current list ideas, and then one question is, are there things that aren't on this list that we've discussed? We've been hearing presentations the last few months. I don't know if this is the time to wrangle in something we've never even heard of, but is there anything that we've been talking about that we should put on this list? And if not, I think we could dive into this question of grant match. This is something that we haven't discussed too much, finding more match, not necessarily the idea of reducing match, but maybe first, is there anything you all want on this list? Yeah, Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Courtney. If you don't mind me jumping in here, not being officially on the council here, but appreciate the opportunity to listen in, and was curious if there had been any discussion in previous meetings around the prescribed fire bill, the Senate bill that's focused on the liability fund and the certified burner reciprocity piece that is attached also to the prescribed fire subcommittee of the Colorado Wildfire Commission. And just curious where we've noted that it's been introduced and is out there, and just curious if the committee here has had any discussion on it.
Thanks, Rob. This committee has not spoken about that piece of legislation. I think that's a good flag to put on the agenda for our meeting next week, so this committee can discuss if it would like to take a position on that and then recommend the council do so or not on February 6th.
Okay, yeah, if there's opportunity for that, that would be great.
Pat, what do you think?
Yeah, I want to make sure we're all comfortable with the prescribed fire conversation. I was going to suggest that number 2, maybe we look at maintain funding as well. Given the conversation we just had about budget, might be good to advocate for just keeping things as they are. We don't want to lose anything.
Allison, what do you think?
Well, actually thinking I want to ask Christina. I can't see everybody. So I think Christina, you're still on. Just making sure. So when I was thinking about this of transitioning to maintain, HFVC is the main funder. Is that the main state funding for the Good Neighbor Authority right now, or is there other funding that needs to be maintained as well?
More on the federal side. I don't know. I can look into like the breakdown, federal versus state. It is a combination. And so some of it is kind of outside the state realm. It is federal. Yeah.
So my question back to you is it appropriate to keep Good Neighbor Authority as a separate call out of maintaining that program, or does it fit within the bucket of number 1 when we talk about HFVC, Furworm, and COSWAP?
I think the distinction, I think to Pat's point, maybe just going with maintain, I would be fine with lumping GNA into the number 1.
Like maybe we could also call out GNA in it as well.
Yes.
Like we can make sure to continue to spread that acronym and that full name.
Yeah. And James, any concerns from that I'm not thinking of?
The only concern, and I don't know if this matters, but Furworm, HFVC, and COSWAP are all state dollars.
Right.
GNA is primarily federal money that we get from the state that we leverage with a match. So I don't know if that's a difference, but we technically do get state money, but it's usually as like a leveraging point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think for right now, Allie, just based on James is correct. I think for right now, remove GNA just because it is primary. We don't have like a state pot of money, like a state appropriation for GNA. So I think given that, it's fine to remove from that list. And then I can consult with Everett, our GNA specialist, and see what ideas he's learned from other states and how they have modeled their state GNA funds. And so it could be something that we look into for this committee in the future related to state funding appropriations and requests.
Thanks.
Christina, yeah, thank you both, all 3 of you for that. I'm wondering, so what I think I heard is remove
It'd be number 2.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Mr. Morgan, what do you think? And I'm welcome other people's comments too.
I think the GNA portion of it needs to be separate for a variety of reasons. One of which is it is primarily federal, and the other thing is that this GNA in some other states and some other programs actually becomes a lot of the projects are self-funded. They are economically viable. So I think keeping that separate would be real important, so that they would have that flexibility within their program. I think there's a difference there. One, you're asking for money to do set stuff, and the other ones, you have a program that oftentimes generates income or is self-funding. So I think there's 2 different sets of parameters there that you're working under. So I would recommend it stays the same, but whatever anybody else thinks here, as long as it's in there. You can put it on the heading either way, but I would think you would want it separate.
Yeah, so I'm hearing 2 ideas. One is keep number 2, and the other one is remove number 2, because there actually isn't state funding. There's not an appropriation to GNA that could be maintained or increased.
We could, I think, we could keep a line item in there for GNA. I don't know if increase is the appropriate word, just because we don't have a state appropriation. So whatever the wording is, I mean, we can modify that. Like we could, I don't know, but a different word from increase would be, I think, appropriate.
Christine, I wonder if, you could talk to Everett and find out if there is an appropriate way to have a recommendation that supports GNA, even though there is, is there actually legislative action that can be taken related to GNA that would be appropriate to have here?
Yep, I'm happy to look into that.
I'm also curious. I mean, we have 2 more things to discuss here. Maybe we should move down to this one, since we haven't talked much about grant match. I think Commissioner Shattuck McNally wanted to hop in on this conversation. If she's available, I'll just give a little reminder to people that we do hear that meeting match can be a challenge for small organizations. We also hear that for grant programs, match is really important to make the impact, to expand the impact and to make the limited resources go further. So I think we heard that grant programs don't feel good removing match requirements, but we were also wondering, is there a way to maybe make grant match easier, or there be some sort of resource for grant match? Does anyone have anything to add to that discussion? Mark?
I'll try to keep it very short. I've had a lot of experience with different projects and being the contractor on projects on a lot of these match deals, and I have some concerns. One concern is that match funding, oftentimes the money follows the money. People that have substantial resources then get additional resources on these match programs. And oftentimes I've operated on contracts where the people were totally capable of providing the funding themselves for their project, but they're not going to turn down match funding to do the job. So, I mean, I am concerned with the match requirements. On the other hand, the match requirement that I've seen is a real important thing to how seriously people really want the work done. Otherwise, some of these agencies are running around recruiting clients to do work on regardless of the price. And I've seen a lot of frivolous contracts that I did not think had a lot of merit. I participated in some. I'm not proud of that fact, but I think getting bang for the buck, there has to be some kind of a merit review of the projects. And the match funding helps require that, you know, but I also am concerned about the funding ultimately going to some of the wealthiest people with a project. They're totally capable of funding the work themselves, and they go around picking up funding to do these kinds of projects. So I don't know how you deal with that, but they're very real concerns, and I see them every day and every day and every day in our work. So just some thoughts. I'll shut up and you can have at it.
Yeah, any other thoughts on match? And Mr. Morgan, I might ask, you know, I think at the end of this meeting, we were going to assign like maybe some homework for people to flush some of these ideas out a little bit more and perhaps come up with recommendations on some of these topics if we didn't get there yet. So I know you're very passionate about this one. This one might be something that we see if you're interested in diving into more. Are there any other thoughts about ways to reduce the burden of match or make state funding more accessible to people?
I'll provide the frustration, but I'm looking to you folks for some of the answers. That's where this is at with me. I'd be happy to do anything I could.
Pat, what do you think?
I think I've talked way too much, but I will offer that I think match is really important for grant funding in order to, you know, get the most out of every dollar, right? If you can turn $1 into $5, I think that's a fabulous investment for a private entity or for state dollars to get federal dollars or whatever. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to work in that space, even if it would be the Health Council come on, you know, tackle some sort of informative webinars so that every landscape has the opportunity to compete equally, not just to your point, Mark, the ones that have experience, right, or can afford a grant writer or whatever, that kind of thing. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So I will say that I guess I'm as passionate as Mr. Morgan is, and if we need to flush some of that out, I'd be happy to work on it as well.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Yeah, I like that acknowledgement that it's important, and is there a way to make it less of a stumbling block? Does anyone else have thoughts on match? It's such a tough one.
I applaud you for selecting this off the bottom of the list because it is the tough one. It's the most important one. And it's the one that's got to get done. And I saw you trying to steer us around to this throughout this meeting, and we need to get there and we need to do something with it. And I do appreciate your efforts there, Allison and Courtney.
I think the discussion, I think it, you know, sometimes it takes a little time to get us to these discussions, but it came just at the perfect time. So thank you both. And Pat, you have not spoken too much this meeting. I appreciate all of the unmutes.
I would really hope to hear from other people, their ideas. I think we need fresh ideas. I mean, I feel like I've chewed this thing to death over the years, and I think this old dog needs some new training here. There needs to be some people out there with some better ideas on how to do this. And I can't wait to hear what you've got, Pat, because I know you look at the other side of this all the time. I really do. And I really hate to be involved in projects that I don't think have the merit that they could have had. And I really think there's a lot of room there to do better. Silence is deafening here today.
Yeah, Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe just a question. This is a world I don't see much of on my day to day, and I guess I'm just curious: are we aware of whether it's a different state or on a local level? Does someone do this really well? I mean, has somebody sort of unlocked the key to this and figuring out how they did it or whether, replicating it would work is something we should be looking at. I guess I'm trying to get educated on it as much as anything.
Yeah, Julie. So the Leveraging Resources Subcommittee, this is when I was the chair. So this would have been, gosh, like a year ago, was looking into that, like a collective pool of state match funds. Yes, some states are very successful. California, and Washington and Oregon all have like state administered programs where they kind of like leverage and pool together all the funds collectively. And so, yes, so the Leveraging Resources Subcommittee, I believe, had a few different presentations from different groups from different states that showcase kind of that collective benefit of being able to pool different match funds. So not just state dollars, but I mean everything like nonprofit, utility funding, federal, state, like basically all combined into one governing entity. And then each state was a little bit different in how they allocated those resources through like a grant program a few times a year. And there were resource teams set up throughout the state that decided on their local jurisdiction decisions about how the funds were spread out. But yeah, each state does it a little bit differently. And I think all those presentations were shared. I know Commissioner Shattuck McNally attended those as well. So that might be something, I don't know, that the Forest Health Council, because of the Leveraging Resources Subcommittee having that awareness, like kind of that cross-pollination between this group and the Leveraging Resources may be beneficial to look at other state models. But yeah, I just wanted to share that, yes, other states do have effective programs, and Leveraging Resources Subcommittee has focused on that in the past. Courtney, you attended those, right? You were on those. Yeah. Anything else to add that I'm missing?
Yeah, I think you explained what we heard very well, which was
Oh,
great.
Utah was another one too. Yeah.
And I think we were very impressed by what other states were doing. There was a lot of resources and integration. Essentially, the whole all state funding was linked together in this very intricate, tight web.
Mm-hmm.
And I think would be good to hear from. I don't know if Katie, you were the chair, maybe Christine, you were the chair at that point, but like to dig through to hear our conversations about that. And maybe this is a conversation I'm hearing, in 7 minutes, I don't know if we're going to come up with a really thoughtful recommendation on match. It sounds like maybe we need more information. Maybe we need to think about it more. So it might not be something we can push forward right now, but I wonder if it is possible to compile some of the notes or ideas that the Leveraging Resources Committee had and share it with this group.
I put together notes on those, like summarizing all those presentations. Let me try to find, oh, you know what? It's on my Denver Y. Dang it. So I don't have it anymore. Someone on the committee has it. On the Leveraging Resources Committee has it.
And maybe, and my apologies, I didn't check our website if it got posted up there under the, it could be available. I guess what I hear folks saying is we need to take action. We need to do something around the fact that this match situation it seems broken or ineffective, right? And if that's the case, just given where we are currently, I mean, is what this group needs to do is ask the larger council whether we can make a recommendation as part of what gets routed up to the governor's office, that they focus on this, that they look at the examples that the Leveraging Resources Committee has identified, ask them to study that and try and find ways to implement more effectively for our state, something that's going to make the difference that I'm hearing doesn't exist for us right now. It seems like folks have done some really good homework that may not be getting in front of the people who can make the decisions on how to change how it works in this state. And if our council has the ability to make those recommendations to the governor's office, then maybe that's something we should be pushing at. Just a thought.
I was
Go
just-
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to offer another observation, and that is that I think as federal dollars become a little more tight or a little more scarce, having competitive grant applications is going to be even more important. And so I really do think this needs to be a priority for our committee. And I apologize to you, Mr. Morgan, if I jumped in front of you.
You're fine. I think a really great mentor for me for much of my life was Dr. Dennis Lynch at CSU. And when he approached a problem like this, the first thing he did was, let's go out and find out what everybody else was up to and how they solved it. That was always his first response was, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have to find who's already got a good wheel. And I think, so I would really look forward to whatever you have, Christina, information that way on, and this merit part of it. And Pat, I think you're exactly right. That competitive grant process, it needs to be a level playing field, but it needs to be a true competition to get the quality. And I guess what I tried to express earlier was I was afraid that some people were buying an advantage in that process with money rather than with quality. And I guess maybe I state that a little more clearly. So I'm excited that everybody's getting in the middle of this because it's been near and dear to me for a long time.
Thanks, Mr. Morgan. So I think we are coming to the end of our meeting, and we've had some great conversations, some thoughts about match, and maybe what I heard, which I appreciate from Julie, is that this group doesn't have the solution to the match challenge, but maybe the recommendation is that policymakers or departments or the Gov's office take some time to look at what's working in other places. It's I don't, is that our role, or is that, maybe the role of the people who are more implementing it, who run the programs. So I think that's an interesting recommendation. I put this here. I'm wondering if we have one more meeting before the Forest Health Council meeting, and these ideas, they don't, if the group doesn't feel comfortable with them, they don't have to move up. But if there is a way that we can get these ideas into legislative recommendations, we have a 2-hour meeting next week. But I'm wondering if anyone would volunteer to spend a little bit of time with some of these recommendations between now and then, so that there's something for the committee to respond to next week.
I'll look into the GNA stuff. In the meantime, James and I will work on that.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Christina. And as everyone starts to raise their hand and volunteer, I just don't want to forget, we can wrap in some of our ROI discussions. I'm hoping that as we build these recommendations, that we wrap in some of our really robust discussions at the beginning of this process, because we've got a lot to say of why. Of course, we'd love an increase, but we've got a lot to say of why we need to maintain and why we need to partner.
Thanks, Allison. Is anyone else available? Does anyone else have the capacity to spend a little bit of time with one of these concepts before next Friday? I think the number one that I think maybe Allison and I can craft some language around number one. It seems pretty simple to maintain funding. What about match or number three? We didn't talk about so much. I am uncertain exactly how that would turn into a legislative recommendation, but we can also talk about it next week. Thanks, Christina.
Courtney, maybe you and I can also just pull some more information about that and bring together some more detailed recommendation language.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah, and I'm not super clear how number 4 turns into a legislative recommendation.
Yeah.
So much as maybe a different action item under the charter, but
yep. Which I think is something important for us to keep in mind, that maybe not all of these are legislative recommendations, even though they're great ideas. Okay, great.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, well, I don't want to keep everyone past their time. I really appreciate the conversation. It seems like there's going to be Christina, Alice, and I are going to do some more digging. I'll work with Jody to think a little bit more about match. There may or may not be something there for this legislative session, which is fine. And we will come together next Friday for an hour and a half, 8:30 to 10 o'clock. So I appreciate everyone's time. Any last thoughts before we adjourn this meeting? No? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd so move.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Wonderful. Thank you all for your time again. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Bye, y'all.
Stay warm.
Bye all.